Accidental deaths can often be bizarre, with some of the most unusual and tragic incidents occurring in the most unexpected ways. From freak accidents involving everyday objects to strange and improbable scenarios, these deaths remind us of the unpredictability of life. While rare, these incidents often leave us questioning the fragility of human existence and the bizarre twists of fate. Sometimes life takes the most unexpected and tragic turns. What begins as a simple visit or a pleasant trip can end in a way no one could ever predict. Two separate incidents, separated by thousands of miles, remind us of the fragility of life and how everyday moments can lead to unimaginable tragedy. It was March 30th, 2015, a crisp spring morning in Scranton, Pennsylvania. Stephen Wojtak, a 74-year-old man, and his wife made their way to St. Joseph's Cemetery in Throop. This visit wasn't just another errand, it was a deeply cherished tradition. Every Easter, the couple visited the grave of Stephen's mother-in-law to decorate it with flowers, crosses, and ornaments. The act was one of love and remembrance, a way to honour family and the passage of time. The pair arrived at the cemetery around 10 a.m., carrying Easter decorations they had carefully picked out the day before. As they walked through the quiet grounds, their footsteps crunched softly on the gravel paths. The cemetery, tranquil and still, held the weight of countless memories for them. Reaching the grave, they stood together for a while, sharing smiles and tears, letting the moment settle into their hearts. Stephen knelt down to attach an ornament to the headstone. His wife stood nearby, holding the other decorations, ready to continue the ritual they had repeated so many times before. But without warning, the unthinkable happened. The headstone, large and heavy, suddenly tipped forward. It struck Stephen with immense force, pinning him beneath it. His wife's screams pierced the still air, shattering the peaceful silence of the cemetery. Workers who were nearby rushed over, desperate to help. But the stone was far too heavy to move, and there was nothing they could do. Stephen's wife could only watch in horror as her worst nightmare unfolded. Her husband passed away at the scene, his life abruptly taken in the very place they had come to honour the dead. A caretaker later explained that as the ground begins to thaw in the spring, the bases of older headstones can sink, making them unstable. It was an overlooked danger that led to devastating consequences. Stephen's final resting place ended up just a few feet from where he died, right beside his mother-in-law. A visit meant to honour life's fragility ended in unimaginable loss for a devoted couple who had only come to pay their respects. Thousands of miles away and 4 years later, another tragedy would unfold in a similarly shocking manner. In April 2019, Patrick McGuire, a 67-year-old man from Wisconsin, embarked on what he thought would be a trip of a lifetime. Along with his wife Anna and 2 close friends, he boarded a plane to Scotland. None of them had ever been there before, and they were eager to explore the majestic Scottish Highlands. It was a chance to experience breathtaking landscapes, rich history, and maybe even catch a glimpse of the legendary Loch Ness Monster. After a long flight, the group arrived in Scotland and made their way to the Glengarry Castle Hotel near Invergarry. The 19th century country house, nestled between Loch Ness and Loch Lochy, was a picture-perfect retreat in the heart of the Highlands. Surrounded by rolling hills, serene lakes, and ancient woods, the setting was idyllic. On April 12th, as the sun began to set, Patrick decided to step outside. He wanted to enjoy a cigarette and capture a few photos of the stunning twilight over the Highlands. Anna stayed in their room, watching television, thinking nothing of it. Hours passed, and when Patrick still hadn't returned, concern started to build. Anna called his phone, but there was no answer. Grabbing her coat, she hurried downstairs and began searching the hotel grounds. Outside, in the cold night air, she continued to call his phone. In the distance, she could hear its faint ring. Following the sound, she came upon a heart-wrenching sight. Patrick was slumped upside down on a metal bench. He remained in a seated position, but the bench had tipped backward, leaving his chin pressed against his chest and his face jammed against the hotel's stone wall. He was unresponsive and cold to the touch. Anna frantically called for help, But when emergency responders arrived, it was too late. Patrick had passed away. An investigation revealed the tragic sequence of events. As Patrick sat on the bench, it had sunk into the soft, wet grass beneath it. The bench tipped backward, and the impact rendered him unconscious. Unable to move, he became pinned in an awkward position, which led to positional asphyxia. The hotel admitted they had tried to address the issue of sinking benches by placing wooden blocks in the grass, but these makeshift solutions had not been sufficient. The incident led to a court case, where the hotel accepted full responsibility for the accident. While they were fined for breaching safety regulations, the penalty was little comfort to Patrick's grieving family. Both of these tragedies began as ordinary, peaceful moments. Stephen Wojtak and Patrick Maguire had no idea that their fateful days would end so differently from how they began. These stories remind us of the fragility of life and how quickly the mundane can turn into the unimaginable. As we reflect on the tragedies of Stephen Wojtak and Patrick Maguire, it's clear how unexpected events can change lives in an instant. But these aren't the only bizarre accidents that remind us of life's fragility. Stay with us, because up next is a story even more unexpected, one involving a routine maintenance job that turned deadly in the most shocking way. Imagine something as simple as fixing a broken urinal leading to a fatal accident. The following case will leave you stunned, proving just how quickly the ordinary can become extraordinary in the blink of an eye. Keep watching to hear the full story. This unusual and tragic story begins in the heart of London, in the bustling area of Cambridge Circus. It was a seemingly ordinary afternoon on Friday, January 27th, 2023, when 60-year-old maintenance worker Kevin Holding set out to do what he had done countless times before. Kevin lived in Beckingham in southeast London with his wife. He worked for High-Tech Washroom Solutions Limited, a company tasked with maintaining innovative restroom systems across the city. Kevin was not just a dedicated worker, but also a loving husband, father to 3 children, and a grandfather. His family adored him, often calling him the best granddad in the world. On that fateful morning, Kevin received a call about a jammed telescopic urinal outside the Palace Theatre. It wasn't unusual for him to be called for such repairs. This was a job he knew well. For those unfamiliar, telescopic urinals have been in use in the UK for around 2 decades. During the day, these urinals are hidden underground, blending seamlessly with the pavement. However, at night, they rise hydraulically to provide a practical, temporary solution for public sanitation. Although efficient, their design and mechanism require regular maintenance, which occasionally led to calls like the one Kevin received that day. Thinking nothing of it, Kevin got into his work van and made his way to Cambridge Circus, arriving at the scene around 10:30 a.m. He began his work as usual, using his expertise and tools to address the problem. The task seemed routine, something he had done dozens of times before. However, this time, things took a horrifying turn. As Kevin worked, the telescopic urinal suddenly became unjammed. With its powerful hydraulics and heavy metal structure, it slammed shut, trapping Kevin underneath. He was on his hands and knees at the time, and the urinal came crashing down on his waist, pinning his upper body underground while leaving his legs exposed above the pavement. The weight of the structure and the hydraulic pressure turned a routine maintenance task into a nightmare. Emergency services were called at around 1 p.m, reporting a man severely injured and trapped inside a telescopic urinal. Paramedics and firefighters arrived promptly, but even the most experienced among them had never encountered anything like this. Kevin, who was only identified later through his Oyster card, was wedged in a nearly impossible position, with the upper half of his torso trapped beneath the ground. Rescue efforts began immediately, but the urinal's powerful hydraulics had locked it into place, making it impossible to move manually. Firefighters and paramedics tried every tool they had: crowbars, jacks, and brute force, but nothing worked. The situation became more urgent by the minute, as the crowd of onlookers grew. Tourists and locals alike watched anxiously as emergency responders fought to free Kevin. Realizing the tools they had were insufficient, the team called for a specialized industrial crane to lift the urinal entirely. However, the crane wasn't expected to arrive until at least 3:15 p.m, leaving rescuers to continue their efforts for several agonizing hours. When the crane finally arrived, it took immense effort and coordination to lift the urinal off Kevin. The sight was harrowing, and it was clear that he was in critical condition. Paramedics worked tirelessly to stabilize him before loading him into an air ambulance. Tragically, Kevin succumbed to his injuries before reaching the hospital. A post-mortem later determined that he died of compression asphyxia, caused by the immense weight and pressure of the telescopic urinal. This tragic incident sparked immediate action from local authorities, who launched a review of the safety protocols surrounding telescopic urinals. As a precautionary measure, other units in the area were temporarily decommissioned while safety assessments were conducted. Questions were raised about whether more robust safeguards could have prevented such a catastrophe. Kevin's passing left a profound impact on his family and community. He was remembered not only as a skilled and dedicated worker, but also as a beloved husband, father and grandfather, whose life was taken in a senseless and tragic accident. For those who knew him, Kevin's memory serves as a testament to the risks faced by workers who quietly keep the city functioning. Both stories highlight the fragility of life and the unpredictability of fate. What begins as an ordinary day can quickly turn into an unimaginable tragedy, forever altering the lives of those left behind. These incidents serve as poignant reminders of how quickly the mundane can lead to devastating loss. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and stay tuned for more from Horrendous Horror.